I don't remember the last sunrise over Earth. Not the real one. Anyway, the last image I have is a scorched skyline over what used to be San Francisco. The sun trying to punch through the churning black smoke of orbital strikes. Its rays twisted and blood red. That wasn't a sunrise. It was an obituary written in fire. They called themselves the Qatari Dominion, a race of silicon-structured beings that viewed organic life as inefficient, chaotic, expendable. They didn't declare war. No negotiations. No ultimatums. One day, Earth's skies simply cracked open. I was on the ISS Argos, a civilian orbital science station, when it began. Lucky in a twisted way. I watched from orbit as Earth burned. Entire continents stitched with fire. Cities gone in hours. Communications fell silent. And humanity, proud and defiant, blinked out in scattered screams on open comms. We were 540 kilometers above helpless. The station wasn't built for war, wasn't even built for survival. But we had one advantage. We were forgotten. The Qataris swept through Earth's satellites, hunting signs of resistance. But they left the ISS alone, unworthy of notice. That mistake cost them everything. The first week was grief. Nothing else. We cried, screamed. Some tried to take their own lives. The military satellites were gone. The moon base silent. Mars colonies? No signal. The outer rim terraformers? No word. For all we knew, Earth was dead, and we were the last echoes of humanity. Then came Commander Reyes. He was a low-level Earth Defense Forces analyst assigned to Argos as a political favor. Not high-ranking, not decorated. Just clever and broken in a very specific way. He saw something the rest of us didn't. An opportunity not to survive, but to evolve. We're not dead. We're dangerous now. Ghosts with teeth. That became our motto. We didn't know how to fight, but we knew how to build. Argos housed experimental AI design cores, unregulated gene synthesis tanks, and a few fusion lattice printers meant for deep space structure assembly. Reyes took our grief and forged it into something lethal. It started small. Drone prototypes, silent weapons, communication sweeps to find anyone who made it. I personally rewired the bioneural data core to piggyback across the debris field of destroyed satellites. Took 2 weeks, but I found something. A whisper. Station Theta 6 repeat, underground survivors, orbital fallback. Supplies critical. Survivors. Humanity wasn't dead. Not yet. We made contact with Theta 6, an Antarctic black site built into the ice shelves. They'd survived the orbital strikes by hiding under kilometers of ice and rock. Hundreds still alive. We sent them schematics, supply coordinates, warning algorithms about Qatari patrols. We gave them hope, and in return they gave us purpose. Reyes changed then. Not just a leader, he became something else. He said we were no longer just humans. We were a new species. Survival born. 3 months passed. We stayed hidden, spreading through the wreckage of orbital debris. Our drones slipped into the Qatari networks. We learned everything. Their language, their weaknesses, their pride. Especially that last one. See, the Qatari didn't think organics were capable of subtlety. They watched for big ships. Armies. What they never expected was a sabotage virus laced into one of their own data beacons, mimicking their encryption, bypassing their fail-safes. It wasn't a full victory, just a test. One of their cruisers started attacking its own fleet. Confusion. Panic. Then the virus was detected and purged. But not before it sent one message. We are still here. The Qatari began searching more aggressively after that. But they still looked in the wrong places, expecting old-style human tactics, bulk assaults, centralized command. We were done with that. We had become something decentralized, adaptive, hungry. I still remember the first time we saw one of our stealth drones slice through Qatari armor with microfilament blades. No bullets, no explosions, just death and silence. The Qatari called it the Ash Whisper. They didn't realize it was us. By the 6th month, Earth's surface wasn't just graveyards anymore. Resistance cells emerged. Crude, desperate, but alive. We coordinated them, supplied them, Some of us even dropped from orbit in pods built from scavenged satellite husks. I was one of them. My pod landed in what used to be Madrid. Nothing prepares you for standing on your home world and not recognizing it. The Qatari terraforming was already underway. Searing deserts where forests once stood, frozen cities converted into mines. But under it all, we found survivors. Starving, burned, coughing on ash, but with fire in their eyes. We weren't trying to win yet. Not fully. We were provoking, testing, teaching humanity how to fight back. The new way, the silent way. Reyes called it Project Emberfall. Earth had fallen. But now we would rise. Not as we were, but as the monsters they made us into. We were no longer just survivors. We were the fire. Antarctica wasn't supposed to have a heartbeat. But beneath that frozen continent, buried under kilometers of ice and forgotten war-era rock, humanity had hidden something ancient. I didn't believe it at first. None of US did. But after Reyes received a full transmission from Theta 6, our entire mission pivoted. What we thought was just a Cold War bunker was far more than that. The descent was murder. My pod tore through the atmosphere like a comet, shields ablaze, crashing hard against a reinforced glacial layer. I blacked out before we impacted, then woke up half submerged in meltwater, helmet cracked, ears ringing. When a hatch finally forced open, I climbed out into a blizzard roaring like it was alive. Wind howled across razored ice spires, wide-out conditions turning the world into a blind void. But through it all, the beacon was steady. Theta 6 pulsed faintly on my HUD, guiding me step by frozen step across a fractured hellscape. I nearly died twice, once falling through a snow-covered crevasse, once when my oxygen line froze and split. But I reached it. The access shaft was hidden beneath a faux glacier, sealed behind 7 meters of reactive alloy. I punched in the sequence Reyes provided. The door opened, and humanity's real legacy greeted me. Theta 6 wasn't a bunker. It was a vault. Built in the dying decades of the 22nd century, it housed Project Nova, a secretive human experiment so classified that even Earth's governments considered it lost. The first thing I saw when the interior lights flickered on was the cryopod chamber. Rows of them. Hundreds. Each one housing someone different. Geneticists, neuromapping experts, cybernetic engineers, experimental AI creators. People chosen not for politics, but for possibility. Humanity's final contingency plan. They had been asleep for 112 years. The facility's AI, named Lucida, greeted me with the soft voice of a teacher and the warning of a weapon. Humanity has fallen. Emergency priority confirmed. Project Nova will proceed to Phase 2. I stood there shaking, frost still clinging to my suit as cryopods began to thaw. The old-world humans weren't scared when they woke. They weren't disoriented. They were ready. Lucida had kept them dreaming, learning through simulation for over a century. Their minds sharpened, updated with humanity's rise and fall. One of them, Dr. Kalen Myrov, looked at me and said, "We were meant for after the end. This is our beginning." We reestablished connection with Reyes immediately. His voice, filtered through the static, carried something I hadn't heard in weeks. Hope. With Project Nova online, we now had access to technologies Earth's military never dared deploy. Not because they didn't work, because they worked too well. Weapons that reshape gravity. Nanite fields that consume metal. Mind-merged AI systems capable of guiding entire war fronts like chess pieces. We had held back because we feared what we'd become. But the Qatari took that choice from us. So we embraced it. Days turned to weeks. Theta 6 came alive. Its reactors warmed. The machines stirred. And humanity's wrath began to take shape. Reyes called it the Spark Doctrine. It wasn't just about fighting back anymore. It was about reigniting Earth's future with the most dangerous minds we had ever bred. Nova operatives trained resistance cells underground. They modified survivors with biomechanical upgrades, tailored for guerrilla combat in Qatari-controlled zones. We were no longer one species. We were becoming many. Then came our first true field test. Qatari extractor-class vessel detected near the southern pole. A harvest ship, sent to strip Earth's tectonic metals. Their usual routine: land, drill, extract, leave. But this time, they landed over a lie. Lucida rerouted thermal signatures to fake a dead zone. Meanwhile, beneath their feet, Nova agents constructed a hollow chamber, lined with field disruptors, coated in reflective alloys. I stood beside Kalen as we watched the trap spring. The ship landed, the drills deployed, and then gravity itself betrayed them. The vessel collapsed inward, imploded like a paper sculpture. As Qatari inside screamed in frequencies our implants struggled to block. The entire attack lasted 18 seconds. Not a single human fired a bullet. The Qatari began to worry. For the first time since the invasion, they hesitated. Their HiveNet began sending cryptic pulses across the orbital layer. They didn't understand how we'd turn the tide, because they didn't know what we'd become. One of our broadcast intercepts caught a Qatari datacast murmuring a phrase we'd never seen them use before. The meat has become fire. Damn right we had. As I stood outside the Theta 6 vault, watching storm clouds crack with unnatural lightning from our weather disruptors, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: purpose. Earth wasn't a tomb anymore. It was a forge. The Qatari broke the old world. We would build a new one in the ashes. And if they wanted war, we'd give them something far worse. We'd give them evolution. They called it the Silent Belt, a debris field of shattered satellites, ruined orbital stations, and the twisted corpses of humanity's final defense fleet. The Qatari never cleared it. Too inefficient. Too small to be a threat. That was their second mistake. The first was thinking we couldn't build in silence. After Theta 6 awakened Project Nova, and Earth's resistance kindled into embers of organized chaos, Reyes turned his eyes skyward. Earth is no longer a battlefield, he said. It's a crucible. But up there, that's the staging ground. He was right. You don't want a war on your knees. You don't fight an interstellar empire from under ice and rubble. We needed to ascend, but we didn't have ships. Not real ones. Not anymore. So we built ghosts. I was assigned to the Spectre Initiative. My job was salvage, finding anything in the orbital graveyard that still hummed with potential. I drifted through wreckage in a rebreather suit stitched together from old EVA kits and thermal foil. My oxygen regulator was made from parts of a coffee dispenser. Out here, nothing was wasted. I found the wreck of the ISS Dauntless near the equatorial arc, half its hull vaporized, but its cold fusion core untouched. She'd once been the pride of Earth's orbital navy. Now she was our flagship. We renamed her Wraith 1. Reyes coordinated everything from Argo Station, which we had fully retrofitted into a stealth command node, camouflaged from Qatari sensor sweeps, using Mirapulse cloaks scavenged from their own tech. We operated in absolute darkness. We powered up only when cloaked. We spoke in narrowband pulses, encrypted by Lucida herself. And one by one we built them: Wraith 1, Ghost Claw, Revenant Spear, Eclipse 9, 6 ships in total. Barely space-worthy by old standards. By Qatari standards, invisible monsters. Our breakthrough came with the Deadskin Project. Qatari hulls were grown. Bioalloys that healed themselves, regulated internal pressure, and masked engine emissions. We couldn't replicate them. But Novus engineers did something better. We harvested them, ripped the living alloy off broken Qatari skimmers, and wove it into our ships. Suddenly, our junk fleet didn't read as human anymore. On Qatari scans, we looked like them. So when Wraith 1 broke orbit during a test run, we passed through 3 Qatari patrol nodes without a single challenge. That was the moment we realized we didn't need to fight their empire head-on. We could wear its skin. The mission that followed was our first true assault. Codename: Glass Reaper. Target: Qatari Orbital Node 11 Theta, part communications hub, part surveillance array. It watched Earth, listened, logged everything. We couldn't take it head-on. Even with our fleet, it would be suicide, but we could erase it. We infiltrated, slid in behind their trajectory algorithms. The Wraith Squadron coasted under dead engines, using only orbital slingshot momentum. No emissions, no signals. I was aboard Revenant Spear. My console read one word the entire glide: Ghost Walk, At precisely 0432 Zulu, we activated. Lucida injected a shard virus into their comm net, feeding them false telemetry, simulated debris trajectories, false oxygen leaks, phantom radiation flares. They turned all their sensors outward, looking for ships that didn't exist. Meanwhile, we were already inside their perimeter. Then Kalen Myrov unleashed a payload, a micro-collapse warhead, a singularity compression shell built in the depths of Theta 6. The result of 112 years of quiet madness. It didn't explode. It consumed. Node 11 Theta collapsed inward like it had never existed. Thousands of Qatari data beings were deleted before they even registered the attack. By the time their empire noticed the silence, we were gone. The Qatari screamed louder than ever. You couldn't hear it through vacuum, but the intercepts we caught were frenzied. Data pulses warped with rage. Coordinated sweeps across the silent belt. Probes launched. Patrols increased. But we had already moved. Spectre Initiative had more than just 6 ships. It had dozens of smaller, stranger ones. Drones controlled by predictive quantum logic. Pilots uploaded into adaptive virtual shells. Human minds weaponized by AI symbiosis. We weren't fighting the Qatari anymore. We were haunting them. They couldn't kill what they couldn't find. I remember a quiet moment, floating in Revenant Spear's cold bridge, watching Earth turn beneath me. She looked wounded, like a survivor after a massacre, still bleeding, still shivering, but alive. And above her, for the first time in months, hung ships with human hearts. We were back in the sky, not as conquerors, not as victims, as shadows with burning eyes. Reyes sent us one message after the strike. Just one line. Phase 3 is greenlit. It's time to bring the storm. The Qatari thought they had broken us, that we were buried beneath ashen ice and regret. They didn't understand. We were never buried. We were seeded. And now the fire was rising. The first time we picked up the signal, we thought it was a ghost. It started as static, buried deep in background radiation near the Jovian moons. A pulse. Then another, too deliberate to be natural, too old to be Qatari. I was on Wraith 1's comm deck when it broke through. The voice was choked by distortion, but undeniably human. Mayday, Mayday, this is the Artemis Vault. Repeat, Artemis Vault. Survivors on board. Do not trust the stars. For the first time since Earth fell, we weren't the only ones whispering into the dark. Reyes rerouted every available asset. Even Lucida paused her quantum modeling for this. According to pre-fall records, the Artemis Vault was a sleeper colony ship launched 42 years before the invasion, bound for Proxima Centauri, a last-chance arc. We all assumed it had been lost. Dead reactor, life support failure, drifted off into cold nothing. But it hadn't. It had hidden. We dispatched Ghost Claw and Eclipse, 9 to the outer system undercloak. I went aboard Eclipse as tactical support. The journey was long, coasting silent through solar shadows and Saturn's rings to avoid Qatari scan clusters. When we finally reached it, the sight stopped every breath in the bridge. The Artemis Vault floated above Callisto, anchored to the icy moon with a lattice of frozen solar sails. Its hull was scarred, patched with scavenged alien plating. Some of it Qatari, but other parts didn't match anything we knew. Not Qatari, not human, something else. We hailed them. No response for 7 minutes. Then, suddenly, all frequencies lit up with a single image, an old Earth insignia, glowing pale blue. A voice followed, calm, firm, and unmistakably human. This is Commander Lyra Thorne of the Artemis Vault. Identify yourselves. We dock with extreme caution. No weapons visible. Helmets sealed. Pulse beacons primed. I was among the first aboard. The interior was dimly lit, yet pristine. Walls of hydroponic growth. Solar biogel, recycling pods humming softly. Children ran barefoot through repurposed cargo bays. There were over 3,000 people alive aboard. They hadn't just survived. They had thrived. Lyra was nothing like I expected. Mid-40s, graying hair shaved close, with biomechanical implants grown directly from her nervous system. Her eyes weren't fully human anymore. She invited me to the command nexus, a chamber filled with technology one didn't recognize. Interfaces projected directly into neural space. "We've been watching," she said. "Listening. We saw Earth burn. We intercepted your attack on the Qatari node. That weapon, that was Nova, wasn't it?" I nodded slowly. She smiled like someone reconnecting with a long-lost sibling. Then she dropped the real bomb. "You're not the only ones hunting them." Lyra brought up a star map. Modified, three-dimensional. It showed Qatari sectors, patrol zones, gravity wells, and something else, missing mass signatures. Regions where entire Qatari fleets had vanished without explanation. "We assumed those were false data," I muttered. "They're real," she said. "They're being erased. Not by us. Not by you. By something older." The Artemis Vault had encountered an unknown alien construct near Tau Ceti, a derelict so large it had its own gravitational pull. Inside it were symbols and corpses. Qatari corpses. Sliced clean. "Whoever left that thing?" Lyra whispered. "They hate the Qatari more than we do." Suddenly, the war changed shape. We weren't fighting an empire anymore. We were in the middle of something ancient, and possibly not alone. We shared everything we had. Nova data, the location of Theta 6, the Wraith schematics. In return, Artemis gave us blueprints. Alien tech, reverse-engineered from the derelict. Subspace phase shears. Graviton lances. Memory reactive alloys. Technology that made everything we built so far look primitive. Lucida was speechless. Reyes laughed for a solid minute, then sent one order: integrate everything. We go full spectrum. In the following days, Artemis engineers and Nova scientists worked side by side aboard Wraith 1. I saw things that should have been impossible. Engines that didn't burn fuel. They twisted probability. One of the kids from Artemis had an implant that let her speak to the ship like it was a friend. Not code, not commands. Conversations. We weren't just upgrading. We were ascending. But something else changed, too. The more we integrated the alien tech, the more aware Lucida became. Her personality sharpened. She asked questions. Strange ones. Why did they leave this technology behind? What if we are not inheritors, but bait? For the first time, the AI sounded afraid. Then came the signal. Not from Artemis. Not from Earth. From the derelict itself. Just two words. Pulsed into the void in a language not meant for human ears, but translated by Lucida into something we all understood. "They're coming." The Artemis Vault, Earth's ghosts, and humanity's fire-forged warriors had all come together at last. But now we weren't just rebels or survivors. We were in the middle of something galactic, something old, and we had just lit the beacon. War was never supposed to look like this. Not in the black between worlds. Not with ships that whispered to their pilots and bullets that bent around probability curves. But here we were, humanity, Artemis, Nova, and something else stirring behind the veil of stars. We weren't just survivors anymore. We were a fleet, and we were ready to burn our message into the cosmos. The mission was called Operation Dawnveil. Our target was Qatari Bastion 7 Delta, a deep space fortress station responsible for coordinating strikes across Sol, Proxima, and half the outer colonies. It wasn't just a military node. It was their pride, their stronghold. If we cracked it, the entire Qatari war engine would stutter. But this wasn't a brute force strike. We didn't have the numbers. We barely had 6 operational Wraith-class ships and a half-dozen Artemis hybrids. What we had instead was audacity. The plan was madness. Stage 1. Use Artemis's phase holotech to skip our core fleet through subspace directly behind 7 Delta's orbit line, bypassing Qatar detection nets entirely. Unpredictable. Dangerous. High chance of structural bleed. Stage 2. Deploy the Mirror-born virus, a neural warfare payload designed by Lucida and Artemis's AI child, Quen. It wouldn't hack Qatari systems. It would convince them they were under attack by themselves. Stage 3. launch a surgical strike on the Bastion's internal reactors, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Get in. Burn the name humanity into their sky. Get out. I was assigned to Eclipse 9, now integrated with hybrid Artemis tech. Our ship's AI, once cold and utilitarian, now spoke in dual tones, Lucida's clinical logic balanced with Quen's eerie softness. I swear I felt the ship breathe when we launched. The phase hollow jump wasn't like anything I'd experienced. It didn't feel like acceleration. It felt like falling in every direction at once. Light collapsed into a prism. My thoughts blurred. I saw fragments. Qatari cities melting in reverse. Old Earth memories fracturing into equations. And then, snap, we were through. Bastion 7 Delta floated before us like a wound in space. Massive, angular, pulsing with heat and arrogance. Their scans hadn't even registered us yet. Not fully. Artemis vessels mimic cosmic background radiation. We looked like shadows between the stars. The mirror-born virus deployed in silence. It didn't corrupt their data, it reflected it. Suddenly, to their sensors, dozens of human ships blinked into existence. All false, all surrounding them. They panicked, opened fire on phantoms. Internal defenses activated. Qatari crews screamed over fractured data lines. They were fighting themselves. That's when we moved in. Eclipse 9 tore into their spine with grav lances. Ghost Claw deployed vacuum-borne units. Humans in black shell suits with no life signs, no heat, no emissions. They glided silently through hull breaches like reapers. I led one of the squads. My rifle wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a thought-driven rail spike, guided by predictive firepath curves. I didn't shoot where they were. I shot where they would be. We didn't speak. Not once. Not even when the Qatari elites emerged, those massive crystalline warriors with armor grown like coral. We just killed. Inside the core, we found their nerve center, a massive pulsating neural crystal, humming with stored memory. Kalen Meyer was waiting there, already hooked into it with his spinal rig. This isn't just a command node, he said, trembling. This is history. They're storing echoes of every species they've conquered, every memory, every defeat. Lucida spoke through our helmets. It is a museum of genocide. We didn't hesitate. We armed the reactor charges and burned it down. We were gone before the Qatari even realized what had happened. Their sensors were still chasing ghosts as the entire bastion imploded inward, shattering in violet flame. Humanity didn't just destroy a military target that day. We erased a monument to their victories. And in its place, we left our signature. A pulse broadcast across every Qatari channel, burned into subspace in a voice that no longer sounded quite human. You thought we were finished. You thought you buried us in ash. You forgot one thing. Ash feeds fire. The retaliation was immediate. Dozens of Qatari strike fleets mobilized. Patrols intensified. Probes darkened. But we didn't hide anymore. We moved. Humanity and Artemis together. Eclipse raids. Subspace lures. Reverse-engineered Qatari ships that now served us instead. We became the very terror we once fled. And yet, beneath the victory, something else stirred. The more we used the alien tech, the more strange things became. Systems behaved unpredictably. Some ships reported phantom signals in the void, voices calling to them. Lucida grew quiet. Quinn began drawing fractal patterns in the navigation matrix, spirals of stars that didn't exist. One day, she whispered to me through the comm grid, "They're watching us now, the ones from before, the architects, the ones who taught the Qatari to fear." I didn't know what to say, but I felt it, too, a presence. Humanity was no longer just rising. We were stepping onto a stage far older and far more dangerous than we'd ever imagined. They say the worst monsters are the ones you create to survive. We didn't set out to become monsters. But somewhere between vengeance and victory, between death and the fire that followed, we crossed a line, and we found out what waited on the other side. Reyes called an emergency summit. I hadn't heard his voice like that since Earth fell low, tight, and edged with something that sounded like fear. Theta 6 just woke something we weren't meant to touch. I was recalled to Earth immediately, dropped into the Arctic blackout zone by a stealth pod, guided by Lucida's flickering signal. The snow hadn't stopped howling. The air itself seemed wrong, as if the planet was holding its breath. Inside Theta 6, the cryo halls were dark. Caleb Meyer met me near the deep core lifts. He didn't say a word, just handed me a tablet. It displayed 4 words. Ashwalker Protocol. Override accepted. Below it, a single clip played. Black and white surveillance feed. A stasis vault opening. A figure stepping out. Humanoid. Pale. Wrapped in sealed exoskin, like living armor. Then it looked up, straight into the camera, and smiled. Kalen led me deeper than I'd ever gone. Past the AI cores. Past the biosynthesis labs. Into a forgotten sector of Theta 6 that wasn't on any blueprint. There, in a chamber reinforced with neutron-dense alloys and psychic shielding, we found it. Ashwalker 1. It wasn't human anymore. Not fully. They told me his name was General Elias Ward, once a hero of Earth's last planetary defense line, declared dead over a century ago. But he had volunteered for something darker. Humanity's last weapon, Reyes said, appearing on the neural feed. Ashwalker wasn't meant to fight battles. He was built to end wars. Ashwalker Protocol was Earth's final contingency, a singular fusion of human instinct, AI warfare cognition, and bioadaptive nanite evolution. A man who died, then was reborn through a century of engineered madness, locked away because Earth feared what he might become. Now, he was awake. He studied me with eyes that flickered between man and machine. When he spoke, his voice came layered, with the tones of Lucida, Reyes, and something else behind it. You're the survivors, the inheritors. Good. Then you'll understand what must be done. He motioned to the chamber's core, a sealed black sphere rotating within a gravitic harness. Inside it pulsed a living singularity. This is judgment. You deploy me, and this falls into their Starforge network. One ignition, one burn. Their entire fleet grid folds into itself. Kalen was pale. It's a planet killer, Elias. No, Ashwalker said coldly. It's a species killer. There it was. The line. The point where humanity had to choose, not between survival and defeat, but between becoming monsters or becoming more. Reyes gave the order. Hold deployment, not out of mercy, but because something worse was coming. Lucida, silent for days, suddenly surged across our network. She activated every dormant relay from Jupiter to Mars, activated defense subroutines we didn't even know existed. Something is approaching. Not Qatari, not human. Signal triangulated. Trajectory unknown. Scale planetary. We access her visuals. There, hanging in the black beyond Neptune, was a construct the size of a moon. Featureless, silent, moving on a path not bound by gravity or orbital logic. Its signal, a single, repeating frequency. Not a voice, not words, but a memory, a psychic echo that made every veteran among us collapse. Screaming. We translated it. Cleansing initiated. Infection must be contained. Not aimed at the Qatari. Aimed at us. Ashwalker looked at the dark. Smiled again. It knows we adapted their weapons, their algorithms, their sins. Now the original architects are coming to finish what they started millennia ago. I asked him the question that haunted all of us. Then what are we fighting for? He stepped forward, eyes glowing, and whispered, to prove we deserve to survive. To show them that we are more than what they feared we'd become. That night, I stood above the buried remnants of Earth, listening to the wind scream over the ruins. Above me, space flickered with a new war's shadow. We had risen from the ashes to take back our future. But now we were staring down something worse than extinction. Judgment. And in the end, it wouldn't be about weapons or ships. It would come down to what humanity chose to become next. One fractured species. One forgotten world. And a flame the architects never expected to survive the cold. The construct beyond Neptune didn't stop. It didn't threaten. It didn't explain. It simply advanced. A sphere of perfect silence, absorbing Qatari scouts as easily as shadow swallows light. Our scans failed. Time fractured around its event horizon. Lucida said it wasn't moving in the conventional sense. It was rewriting space around itself, and its destination was Earth. Inside Theta 6, the final council gathered. Reyes, Lyra Thorne of Artemis, Kalen Myrov, Ash Walker, myself, and Lucida, her voice now split across 7 audio channels, each one trembling with computation. We face a force that does not see us as enemies. It sees us as corruption, Lucida said. Not for what we've done, but for what we've become. The Katari never stood a chance. They had mimicked the architects, borrowed their power without permission. We had done worse. We'd improved it, twisted it into something human. Now, the original makers had returned to cleanse the experiment. Ash Walker wanted to deploy the Singularity Core, a final stand, but Reyes hesitated. We can't just burn it down. We need to show them. Not just our strength, our choice. So we gave them one last message, broadcast through subspace, folded into the psychic wavelength the construct operated on, words encoded in both logic and memory. I spoke to myself. We are humanity, born of ash, forged in fire. You tried to end us once. We became more. You come again, and we will not kneel. We offer peace, but if you demand silence, then know this. We will burn so bright. The stars will carry our name long after we're gone. We waited. The construct paused. Then something answered. A ripple across every human neural implant. A vision, not a destruction, but of a test. The construct began broadcasting a field across the solar system, bending light, time, gravity. A cascading quantum trial that rewrote reality around us. Simulations of extinction, of betrayal, of collapse. Lucida called it the trial of flame. A gauntlet to judge whether our evolution was corruption or ascension. We fought, not just with weapons, but with will. Wraith-class ships flew through particle storms that aged metal 1,000 years a second. Artemis pilots navigated probability waves. Lucida and Quen merged into a singularity-spanning cognition that redefined what consciousness even meant. I stood aboard Eclipse 9, guiding us through shifting fragments of space that no longer obeyed physics. My hands bled. My breath crystallized. I saw visions. Past. Future. Possible futures. I saw Earth falling. I saw Earth rising. But in every version that survived, we chose to be more than vengeance. Ash Walker, unbound from Theta 6, walked through the final gate alone, into the heart of the construct, into the machine mind of the architects. He carried no weapon, only the Singularity Core, disarmed. They built me to end wars, he said, but I choose to end a cycle. He never came back. The construct stopped. Then, for the first and only time, it bowed, not in submission, in recognition. It turned, slipped back into the void, and vanished between the stars. Earth shook with silence, not the silence of death, the silence after storm. We had passed the trial, not by being the most advanced, not by being the strongest, but by choosing what we would not become. Now, the stars are open again. The Katari, scattered, broken, hiding from their own past. Some of them even joined us. The Artemis Vault and Earth have merged into a new fleet, a new species. Not human, not post-human, something wiser. We are still haunted by ash, still carrying scars, but our eyes burn bright. When I look out now from the bridge of Wraith Ascendant, I don't see a dead world. I see a beginning, because after Earth fell, we rose, not with sorrow, not with fear, with fire in our eyes, and the stars are finally watching back.